Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back, everyone. We are back for the second half of our conversation with Mark Faulkner. We have been discussing the evolving science of creatine and its impact not only on physical performance, but also on brain health and cognitive function. I cannot wait to continue. Welcome back, Mark.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
So, we have a lot of conflicting information online about supplements. Supplement industry is not regulated, and there are a lot of difficulties. There's also a lot of studies done on supplements not even containing what they purport to contain. Help the consumer. What should consumers look for when choosing a high-quality supplement or creatine product?
Certainly. I have to say this was something that was most unsettling to me when I got into the supplement space. So I stepped out of forensic toxicology, which heavily regulated by the College of American Pathologists and the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration and all sorts of governing bodies. And everything had to be buttoned up. We were inspected regularly. People crawled through all of our documents and regulations. And that led me into research to try to find something, as I indicated, that to help athletes from a performance standpoint, since forensic toxicology and testing was taking away some of their steroids and things. And that research led me into the supplement world. And I was aghast at what a wild west it was and what kind of dark and shadowy figures were populating the supplement industry. There was a couple of times where somebody would make a claim and I would call them out and say, well, that's not accurate. That's not a justifiable or a valid claim. And it seemed like all that the industry would do was shout it louder to try to overwhelm any voice that was naysaying against their smoke and mirrors and against their baloney. And so it is difficult. At the root of it, I would say, okay, people need to look for supplements that are processed under GMP, good manufacturing practices, at a bare minimum. Number two is they need to understand their origin of the compound that they're getting. It's oftentimes not listed on the label. They say things like made in America or assembled in America from international and domestic parts or whatever. So many of our supplements come from overseas, and that's not necessarily bad. There are some very good supplements that come in from overseas, but there's also a lot of stuff that is not well regulated, not well tested. And so besides GMP and good manufacturing practices, people really should look for something like NSF, which is the certification, particularly for creatine or any other fitness nutrition products that are allowed to be used in professional sports like Major League Baseball, football, or the NCAA for high-level amateur athletics. So NSF certification or informed choice, that's another certification where these things are tested. TrueShield is another certification that is very good for testing against contaminants or banned substances and things. If I had to say what the ultimate certification for somebody to know that what they're putting in their body has been very well defined from a quality standpoint and very well distilled in the processes is SQF. Safe quality foods. If a compound or if a nutrient, if a supplement has SQF designation, that's really the top. That's the pinnacle of achievement for a supplement manufacturing process. But GMP, NSF, TrueShield, informed choice, and SQF are things that I would look for.
And is there any like warning sign that we should be looking out for if they don't have those, but they're really popular or we're seeing them on the internet? What are some of the warning signs that people aren't really aware of those, additional certifications?
Yeah, let me first, I'll kind of work backwards on that question. Any supplement that is certified by NSF, SQF, TrueShield, Informed Choice, any of those, or GMP, should have it on their label. So the consumer should be able to easily tell that they are in fact those. If they don't have those on, I think that is a warning sign that it probably wasn't made in a certified facility, an FDA registered facility, a facility that is adhering to quality standards that would be expected by the FDA if they were fully regulating them. So I think the warning signs is when some supplement doesn't proudly show that they've gone through the effort to have these accreditations and certifications. So you can also do a fair bit of good sleuthing through their website and see, how long they've been around, what some of they all have good testimonials, of course, but if they talk about their sourcing, and then I wouldn't hesitate to ask. It's interesting that when I first started looking into protein supplements, it was interesting to me that many of them would not designate the USDA grade of protein that was being used. You very rarely see that. You'll see isolates, which are very good, high purity, but on a general whey protein that says 100% whey protein, well, that sounds good. It's 100% whey protein. Well, no, there's a great difference in 100% whey proteins between the usable protein and the protein byproducts and additives like lactic acid or lactose and things that can still be considered 100% whey, but that act as filler. So without putting it on the label, you really have to drill down with the company and say, okay, what is your USDA grade of this protein? Same way with supplements, drill down, find out where is your country of origin? Who was it? Where was it manufactured in terms of actually the facility? And is the facility one that's FDA registered? Because the FDA will register sites overseas. So a little bit of due diligence on the part of the consumer if they're not hanging their hat on the other accreditations that I mentioned.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Don't even get me started on whey protein, because the history of whey is so interesting. It used to be just discarded into the rivers, and we kill fishes because they never even wanted it. Now with this whole crazy, and I mean, it is nuts out there.
Yeah.
Another wild west of, protein and everything, especially whey protein. Now a whey protein is like incredibly expensive, and the demand for it is far exceeding the supply, and it's just commercially driven people. So I would say, do your own research. Please don't just follow what's the newest trend on TikTok or Instagram. Find out if this is actually something your body needs. Do we need to eat our weight in protein? Absolutely not. No, 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 no. And you can go back and look at millions of other podcasts that I've done about this topic. We need to be a little bit more discerning and go and actually look at the scientific sources. We can parse it out. And if you can't parse it out, you can find somebody who will help you parse it out. Don't just put whatever into your body. And speaking of putting something into your body, one of my biggest, areas of interest right now are people who are on these GLP-1s. And they are kind of becoming a categorically malnourished group. And that's, in essence, by design with these medications. What would you have as advice for people who are on these GLP-1s? Obviously, there's a lot of cognitive brain fog, a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, even scurvy is making a comeback.
Yeah.
Which is like bad news. And so a lot of people need very specific dietary advice. They need to be working alongside a dietitian, not a doctor, a dietitian who
Truly.
fully understands nutritional science, knows what goes into food and how it affects the body. What kinds of advice can you give people on the creatine end who are taking these GLP-1s?
Yeah. First, I want to echo what you just said about registered dietitians. I think doctors in 4 years of med school get about 4 hours of nutrition.
Yes.
They're not expert by any stretch of the imagination in
Nope.
this. Dietitians are such a valuable resource in our new healthcare world. I think that that is one of the most important segments for people to be able to chart a course with any medical routine or regimen, to have a healthy, the best opportunity for a healthy life. Because as my grandmother used to say, and many others say too, you are what you eat. And food can be extraordinarily good medicine for us if it's crafted properly. The GLP-1s, and the couple of the major concerns that I have is that it downregulates your metabolic rate. So your whole metabolism is working slower or working less than optimal, and certainly less than it had before you started those medications. Are there people that in many ways probably arguably need some GLP-1 assistance? Maybe so.
Yes.
But our body tells us it's hungry because it's craving certain nutrients.
Yes.
We just are eating things that aren't giving it those nutrients. So the body says, I'm still hungry because I'm not getting those nutrients. You're not feeding me the food that would cause me to be satiated in that nutrient desire that I have. And so if you calm down, or if you stem the diet cravings, the hunger, you're naturally not giving your body most likely the nutrients that it needs. You're kind of putting it into this limbo state that is not healthy, and that gives the opportunity for scurvy and other things to emerge, and as you say, the brain fog and all sorts of things. The key with creatine, and I would say that besides a really healthy, if somebody's on a GLP-1, they need a very, very good vitamin nutrient regimen that a dietitian could help craft for them. Number two, they probably need more protein, good healthy protein, in order to try to not end up skinny fat, because people lose weight on a GLP-1, but their BMI is still out of whack because they've lost as much muscle as they have fat. And along with that, you've got to keep the cellular energy up, and that then is the importance of creatine in a GLP-1 regimen. So vitamins and nutrients, vitamins, minerals, nutrients, protein, creatine, and then hopefully some exercise to help the body try to maintain as much of the protein and the muscle mass as possible. Because as you age, muscle is your currency for being healthy long term. And not being a fall risk, and not developing sarcopenia and from the muscle wasting, because that's what's happening with GLP-1s is it's drug-induced sarcopenia. It's muscle wasting as a result of those pharmaceuticals.
Of malnutrition.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I would say, that if I can be of any assistance to anybody out there who's on them, and there's no judgment from me if you are or you're not on them, is that there's so much conflicting health advice out there.
Mhm.
Yes, you are eating significantly fewer calories and you are losing muscle, but to only ingest protein is not going to do you any good. We get our primary energy source is from glucose, from carbohydrates. And if you are not eating any whole plant foods, you are not doing your brain, especially, any favors, because the brain thrives on glucose. It does not thrive on ketones. It doesn't. It's
Right.
only used really in the dietetic setting to help quell epilepsy, a ketogenic diet. we absolutely 100% need carbohydrates, and we do not need as much protein as being touted out there right now.
Mhm.
And if you are really curious about people that do not necessarily have excess body weight, who live long, who are, still cognitively functioning, go look at the diets of
Yeah.
people in these blue zones. It's fascinating. And
Yeah.
if
The
you're
plant
really,
and fruit-based, the vegetable and fruit-based carbohydrates are so healthy and so good for the body. And it's the glucose you mentioned, that's what fuels the Krebs cycle, the
yes,
citric acid cycle. That's what makes more ATP. That's what kicks off all of these other, biochemical compounds that are absolutely key to the health.
exactly. So, and if you are curious about the science behind it, I would highly recommend. There's one doctor out there there's a few, but there's one doctor who has made it his mission to be all about health care rather than sick care. So his name is Dr. Michael Greger, and he runs nutritionfacts.org, and he's written all slew of books that contain so much science your eyes will pop out. And he only looks for peer-reviewed, validated science that is not industry funded. Okay. So if you're into sticking it to the man a little bit and you really want to know the true science, that is a wonderful place to start, because he disseminates the science into really actionable little bites where you can understand what's going on, and he will walk you through a study. And I would recommend just going to town on nutritionfacts.org and going to read any of his books, because that may help you also decide whether or not a GLP-1 is right for you. There's extreme costs involved. A lot of doctors will say, if you go on this, you need to go on this for life, which is, that you need to consider that and consider all of the potential side effects, the difficulties that may come from long-term use of these products. They are right now kind of touted as this magic pill for all things, especially extreme weight loss. And what we're seeing, you guys, is a lot of eating disorders and disordered eating coming out of that on the dietetic side and on the psychologist side. So I would say, think about taking things very carefully, whether it's a supplement, whether it's a medication. You really want to have as much information behind that as possible. So I'm going to pivot a little bit. Thank you for going on that wild tangent with me, but
No,
I'm
perfect.
always about helping people navigate through that kind of stuff. And speaking of navigating, what are some of the biggest misconceptions around creatine and creatine use?
I think one of the misconceptions is that creatine is just creatine. You hear people talk about creatine, but you don't oftentimes hear them talk about the forms other than, oh, you should just take creatine monohydrate. Well, some people, creatine monohydrate, as I mentioned, if you're looking for strength and bulk, that is a great molecule for that. So one misconception is that there are different forms that are useful for different applications. Another misconception is that it's for guys. It's a male gym bro sort of deal, and that it's not for women. Really, truly, all people, all cells need creatine for optimal health. Another misconception is dosing. Everybody hears 5 grams, or for cognitive benefits, it's 10 to 20 grams. Well, those are big doses, and that's only talking about creatine monohydrate. The comparative doses of creatine hydrochloride, instead of 5 grams or 5,000 milligrams, are 0.75 grams or 750 milligrams, up to like 1.5 grams. If you're really getting crazy, maybe 2 or 3 grams of creatine hydrochloride, but that does the same sort of brain energy metabolism improvement, brain creatine level improvement, overall cellular health improvement, the strength, endurance, and recovery improvement that those much larger doses of creatine monohydrate provide. So the dosing is a misconception. 5 grams is not just applicable to everybody for every form of creatine. And probably that a misconception is that just because creatine monohydrate has been around the longest, that it's the gold standard. I mean, the rotary phone has been around longer than the digital smartphone, and not everybody's still making calls on
Gen Z out there is like, huh?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So it's, I think that as more research emerges on creatine hydrochloride, as more awareness of different molecular configurations and conjugations is understood, that some of those misconceptions will fall by the wayside. Another misconception is that creatine gives you side effects. Again, creatine monohydrate, yes, puffiness, bloat, retention for the majority of people that take it, and over 80% of women that take creatine monohydrate do experience those side effects. But those side effects are not present with low doses of creatine hydrochloride. And yet it's still, those low doses deliver more creatine to all the cells. So those are some of the main misconceptions.
Now you mentioned gym bros, and I also want to pull in the biohacking kind of folk out there. Can you just briefly tell me what the heck is up with peptides? What is up?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I have not jumped on that bandwagon. There's a lot of people making a lot of claims about these peptides. Many of them, in order to be effective, have to be injected. I don't know of very many peptides, maybe of any, that are going through. If you're having an injectable, for them to be not going through an FDA approved clinical trial for quality and for purity and things, that concerns me a little bit. Most peptides that are taken orally, not all, but most, are destroyed in the gut. So you're expending a fair bit of money for a peptide that isn't maintaining its form into the bloodstream. So I think it's a pretty significant fad right now. I think that there will be, I'm sure, some good peptides that end up with good research behind them and that rise to the top. But I think that there's a lot of people right now that are promoting peptides that the claims are not backed up by the effectiveness.
Yeah, it's just I think just taking off on the GLP-1s, or those are peptides as well, and what they may be able to do in our body, but there's just not the research out there. I just think that there is. There are these fads and these trends, and right now it's all about how we can hack the body. And what I recommend for people is that our bodies aren't math equations. They're not like puzzles to solve. We actually do better when we work in harmony with our body. Mark mentioned something so important about hunger in particular. And I think we have been conditioned to think that hunger is something that's bad and that should be pushed away, and that's morally wrong and something that we should ignore. And it is our body asking for something. There's a hormonal cascade. When we are hungry, ghrelin, our hunger hormone, is telling us we need nutrients. We need nourishment. It is a good signal. And he was also correct in that when we do give in to our hunger, we're usually eating something that's, from farther away from the ground rather than lower toward the ground. And the thing that our hunger is asking for are stuff that's like from lower to the ground. And then when we don't stress out while we're eating and we stay in our parasympathetic nervous system and we're calm, that's how our body knows it's safe to digest food. And that's when it'll start doing all of the things that we want it to do, the things that we're trying to hack it into doing, using nutrients effectively, getting rid of extra fat, building muscle, all that kind of stuff. The body has to be safe. So out there right now is the wild west of, let's stress ourselves out completely and totally go against our body's, natural functioning.
Isn't it interesting? I love what you just described and shared with your listeners, because isn't it interesting when you think about the old world habit of gathering and sitting and eating in a social, relaxed sort of setting, and then resting a bit after. that you have this time of calm, this time of, as you said, kind of inviting the body to know that it's safe to go ahead, to digest, to restore itself, et cetera. And yet, what do? No, we eat standing up on the run, shoving down whatever crap that wasn't close to the ground.
Scrolling.
Yes, exactly. And it's the social and the peaceful and the calm aspects of diet and of breaking bread together and things is largely lost, which is unfortunate. And I think, our health is paying.
Yes. And back to Okinawa for a second, because I can tell I love them. They have a concept called hachi bu, which means 80% full, which means we eat together socially, we eat slow enough, and then we gauge when we're about 80% full, we stop, talk a little bit more, and then decide if we're still hungry. And that is a huge reason why Okinawans are not huge.
Right.
They listen to their bodies and they honor their bodies. And that's what I'm really hoping for people. I'm so excited about this discovery of yours. And I do think it can be very helpful. And it's also helpful to know that you can take it in very small doses. And those small doses can do some wonders for our brains. Can you please tell people how they can find out more about you? What's all your info?
Certainly. You had spelled out the name previously, CON-CRET, CON-CRET, and CON-CRET.com, CON-CRET.com is a site that's got a fair bit of information. There's also a website, unbranded, it's not trying to sell anything, that just is full of research and information. And it's just simply Creatine HCl, creatine, saying HCl is for hydrochloride, but creatinehcl.com. And that has a lot of research, and it has research on not just creatine HCl, but also creatine monohydrate and other forms, because it's kind of just a repository for all the things that the medical world, the scientific world are studying in terms of the attributes of creatine in different life applications and things. It helps people to understand that, it's not just for gym bros. It's just not for, males or whomever. It really is for everyone. The World Health Organization is looking at recommended daily intakes, RDIs, for all age groups, for elderly to prevent muscle wasting and sarcopenia, menopausal women, as we talked about, adolescents, even infants and toddlers. They have shown that infants that are supplemented with carefully dosed creatine have larger brain or skull circumferences, which means their brains.
Okay, you said carefully dosed, and don't just go and dose your kid with a ton of creatine, y'all.
Gotta be done. Okay. Got to be done according to a doctor's oversight, but also the World Health Organization RDIs for nurturers. But pretty soon there will be RDIs for all age groups for creatine. The researches that I indicated on those websites helps to show some of that. But it's
we love that you bring the science. That's what I love on this podcast. When you really bring the science, it's not just a bunch of hype or what we're hearing on the internet. And that's why I brought you on. So thank you so much for joining me, Mark. It was a pleasure to have you on my podcast.
It was really an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining me. And I am really looking forward to my next exciting interview. And I really hope you join me next time. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Tune in next time and evolve with us.